Hello friends, welcome back to Swapnil's analysis and I am Swapnil. Today we are going to discuss about Aristotle's definition of tragedy. So first of all, we will discuss about or distinguish rather between comedy and tragedy. So as we all know that plays they are divided into two parts. First comedy and tragedy, and the modern part that is the absurd theater or the absurd play. So when Aristotle he was discussing about tragedy in his Poetics, it is a treatise, it is a kind of a book which gives us about all the information about the art of literature. So when Aristotle he was discussing about comedy and tragedy, Aristotle considered tragedy as a superior form of literature and comedy as a very lower kind of a form because it does not appeal to the human emotions. It just entertains us. So first of all, many of the people they have a very wrong conception about comedy and tragedy. In some people they think comedy means they should be able to laugh while reading or watching that particular play. While in reality that is not the real thing. Comedy means a play which ends on a happy note, where at the ending a hero he doesn't die. So all the plays which ends on happy note or wherein hero he doesn't die, all those plays are considered as comedies. While tragedy, it is very simple that hero he dies at the end, that is considered as the tragedy. And the main important part of the tragedy is that there should be a reversal of fortune. There should be the declination of the status of the hero. So as we all have studied tragedies, we all know about the tragedies. That means Christopher Marlowe, he made tragedies a very popular during the Elizabethan period. Later on, the baton from Christopher Marlowe taken over by Shakespeare, and Shakespeare he is today considered as the master of tragedy. So, and in the modern period, as we all aware that tragedy is a form which has always attracted the people, which has always attracted the dramatists or the playwright. So in the 20th century, Arthur Miller he popularized that form again, and they gave birth to the new tragedy or that is called as a modern tragedy, which are rather completely different than the Shakespearean tragedy. And therefore after Arthur Miller, August Wilson he has written some of the very good tragedies or popular tragedies, and one of that tragedy is Fences. August Wilson, a modern American playwright, and he has written a very beautiful play called Fences, and Denzel Washington has directed that play. He adapted that play for the movie, and that movie was released in 2016, and I would recommend that you should all watch that movie. It is a very good movie. So turning back to our today's topic of tragedy, the definition of tragedy by Aristotle, and we are going to analyze each and every part of the tragedy. So what is the definition of the tragedy which has been laid down by the Aristotle in his Poetics? So now Aristotle he wrote Poetics in the Greek language. So what the definition which I have, it is the translation, it is a translation or translated definition of tragedy from the Poetics, because I do not know the Greek language. So what I have studied about Poetics through only the translated and available version of the Poetics in English language. So Aristotle he defines tragedy thus: tragedy then is a representation of an action. that is worth serious attention, complete in itself and of some amplitude, in language enriched by a variety of artistic devices appropriate to the several parts of the play, presented in the form of action, not narration, by means of pity and fear, bringing about the purgation of such emotions. Bringing about purgation of such emotions. So when you read this definition of tragedy, you would not understand that what is the tragedy. If you are willing to write the tragedy, then you are bound to understand, you are supposed to understand this definition of the tragedy, because this definition itself is the tragedy, that any tragic play he should follow whatever is said in this definition. This is a kind of a rules for writing the tragedy, because therefore this definition is considered very important in the literature as well as for the writers who wants to write the tragedy. They must first understand this definition, otherwise, or even if you want to understand any tragic play, first you should know about this definition, and then you should apply this definition to any of the tragic play with to check or to verify whether that play follows this definition or not, because this is the main formula sort of to write the tragedy. So let us start our analysis of this definition. So what Aristotle says, that first, that tragedy is a representation of an action. Tragedy is a representation of an action. Now action means here what action and which action. Action here means main in action. That protagonist, that antagonist and supporting actor, they must be performing the acts of some incidents of the life. That is the action. Only some necessary incidents of the person's life. Protagonist, antagonist and supporting characters, they should represent some incidents of person's life. Action that is worth serious attention. Whichever action a writer decides to perform or present, it should be serious. It should not be comic. Means you cannot show the action from the birth of the hero till his death. Only the important action, and that should be very serious, not the comic one which he is talking about. Complete in itself, the action which you are going to select, it should be complete, it should be whole. Although it is fragmented, but it should be whole and it should be connected to one another. Action should be complete in itself, means it should be connected to one another. The incidents which we are going to show through the tragedy should be connected to one another. It means it should have proper beginning, it should have the middle, it should have the climax, and it should have the ending. Means, for instance, if a play which wants to inform its audiences about the past life of the protagonist, then rather than presenting that action on the stage, rather than it should be narrated by the chorus or it should be discussed by other characters through the dialogue. That is the plan of here of Aristotle, that only the important and the serious action should be considered while writing the tragedy, not whole of the one. If there was a battle, then it should be narrated. It is not necessary to show the battle or the not so important incident of the person's life. So complete in itself means, although we are going to just discuss about some important events of the person's life, it should be connected to one another. It should not be in a fragmented position. It should be connected to one another. That is the complete in itself implies. An action should have some amplitude or magnitude. Here he talks about the length. That the tragedy, it should not be too long that it would look as if it is an epic, or it should not be too short so that people, they would not understand, the audience, they would not understand the effect, or it would not have the necessary effect on the audiences. The length of the play should be very moderate. It should not be too long. It should not be too short. And the most important thing in the play or in the tragedy is that there should have to be a reversal of fortune. There has to be a movement from happiness to the misery by his continuous tragic flaw. That he talks about, that there in a tragedy there has to be this reversal of fortune. Means, for instance, what happens when Arthur Miller's play A View from the Bridge, it commences, then Eddie is the most respected person in the whole of the play. Everyone respects Eddie. The family, his guest Rodolfo and Marco, they all respects Eddie. But towards the end of the play, if you observe very minutely, that Eddie is the most hated person in the play. That is called the reversal of fortune. Earlier, at the beginning of the play, Eddie is the most respected person in the society, in the house and everywhere. And towards the end of the play, Eddie is the most hated person in the play. That is called reversal of fortune. That is called reversal of fortune. And the declination of the tragic hero means his moral declination. It is not economical declination. It is not from turning from rich to poor. It is declination from higher moral values to the lower moral values. Okay. And then language. In language enriched by a variety of artistic devices appropriate to the several parts of the play. The language of the tragedy. What Aristotle says, the language which is going to be used for the tragedy should be very artistic, should be very dramatic, should be very hyperbolic, so that it will attract the attention of the audiences. It should not be very ordinary language. And the language should be appropriate to the incident, to the situation, and to the characters as well. Means, for instance, if there is a king, then how a king would speak, then the dialogue should be written in that manner. And if there is a beggar in the play, in the tragic play, then the language used for the beggar should be that as a beggar would speak, or the beggar would use. So the language should be very hyperbolic, should be very dramatic to have the effect on the audiences, and importantly, it should be appropriate to the incident, to the situation, and to the characters. Then he says, presented in the form of action, not narration. Means, what is the tragedy? Tragedy is a play and it should be enacted in front of the audiences for its necessary effect. Now, it should not be narrated. It should not be read. To have the necessary effect, the tragedy should be narrated. It should be performed. Means, all the important events, all the necessary serious actions or the incidents of the protagonist's life should be performed before the audiences. And all, as I have told you earlier, unnecessary events like the battle, like the past life of the character, like his childhood incident, it should be narrated through the chorus or by some other characters. But the main and important events from the person's life should be performed before the audiences. Then by means of pity and fear, bringing about the purgation of such emotions. Now, pity and fear, here he means that pity. Why pity? Because the audiences, they know that when the reversal of fortune happens with the tragic hero, the audiences, they are fully aware that the hero, he doesn't deserve such a kind of a thing. Means, for instance, when Othello, he kills Desdemona, the spectators, the audiences, they are fully aware that Desdemona has nothing to do with the Cassio. It is all the trap which was constructed by the Iago, and Othello very foolishly he falls into that trap. And therefore, as audiences or the spectators, they feel pity for that hero, that he doesn't deserve such a kind of a situation, and he has descended from high level to the low level only because of his tragic flaw, not because of his fault. So in Iago, means in Othello, he easily falls into the trap of Iago. So audiences, they know that it is all the plan of Iago, not the Othello. So we feel pity. Same with the King Lear. As audiences, we know that King Lear, he was so arrogant that he doesn't see that his elder daughters, they do not love him. While on the other side, Cordelia, she loved her father truly. And therefore, when he realizes this thing, we feel pity for that character. That is the pity. We feel sad for that character. And the fear for the audiences, fear for the us, that if we behave in our real life in such a way, the way Eddie has behaved, the way Othello has behaved, or the way King Lear has behaved, then we also might have the same fate as Othello, Eddie, or the King Lear they had. So it is a fear. It prevents the future action. So it generates fear and pity, the both emotions among the audiences. And therefore, this pity and fear is more important for the effect of purgation of such emotions. And then the audiences, when they feel sad, when they cry, that is the purification of soul. So tragedy, it is not merely a play, it purifies the soul of the audiences, it teaches them. So this is the a very brief analysis of Aristotle's tragedy. What do you think about it? And if you have liked my presentation, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.